last we saw on stream over the last 2 days. So with that in mind, he's not queuing it at first. A lot of mind games go into the opening queue, and Justsaiyan is playing a druid. He's not just killing people with odd rogues over and over again, after all.
Yeah, it feels to me like Justsaiyan might have got the better of the mind games in terms of the first order queue here, because, I mean, if Justsaiyan was expecting the Malagos Druid to come up first, even Warlock is not a particularly bad deck to put into it. If you can get down a Giant early on, that can just end the game right away, and Justsaiyan never even gets to really play this game of Hearthstone. But Quest Rogue, I feel like if played at the absolute highest level, like I would imagine Mitsuhide is playing it if he brings it here, or the best that Hearthstone players are currently able to do. No one's really perfected the deck. You should be in a really good spot against the Maladruid.
Yeah, and I feel that when a player like Mitsuhide, who's been around for a long time, they were playing Quest Rogue through all the iterations. There are people out there now going, hey, it's good, I'll play it. Well, you're late, and you've got a lot of learning to do. You should probably do it, because it's really good, but people like Mitsu have been playing it all the way through, so yeah, I imagine he's pretty tasty on the Quest Rogue.
But while I was saying that there's the potential for a Mountain Giant to come down as early as possible, turn 3, given that Mitsu is on the coin, and Justsaiyan to not have a Naturalize to answer, it looks like that might actually be happening here. He has got what looked like a decent hand to get things going. Wild Growth going into a Ferocious Howl as well is not bad, but the follow-up is really just not there in between turn 5 and the Ultimate Infestation.
Yeah, and obviously it will slow everything down if Justsaiyan has to start dealing with this. I don't think he can't do much to deal with. That's a big problem right now.
So then the game plan for Justsaiyan becomes, okay, I can't deal with the Mountain Giant. That's not great, but it's kind of like, this is fine. This is okay. I'll take my hits every turn.
Yeah.
But he has Dream Petal Florist with a Malagos in hand and a Swipe. So just turn 7, he can throw down the Dream Petal. Getting rid of the Tyrant out of his hand, I think, perfectly plays into this game plan. And then turn 8, he can go Malagos Swipe with any other spells that he's picked up, like Moonfire off the top, and hope to clear the board and stick that Malagos for the win.
Yeah, this also challenges if he wants to immediately, gives him the option to challenge immediately with just swipe the Giant away. I don't think he wants to do that. It's not fun. It's more likely to challenge the secondary minion that comes down. But it does give him that option to have 2 4s adding up to 8, which is one of my favourite numbers.
Yeah, both reasons to go for the Tyrant over the Twig, which is not necessarily the easiest decision, I think, because Twig is very good in this matchup. If it's not destroyed, that's how you make the big swing turns with Malagos to pull things back. But I love the focus on giving the potential to deal with the Mountain Giant, and even if that doesn't work, Dream Petal on 7 for the Malagos.
That is the key, that Dream Petal. Huge pickup required here for Justsaiyan, and that makes things a little bit easier for him, I think.
Yeah. It means he doesn't have to even use the Swipe here, which
that's
I think he was willing to do,
yeah.
But he really wants to save it, because that Dream Petal Malagos Swipe combo is so devastatingly good.
Yeah, now he gets to develop the Twig, so it's not just the Swipe he's got to save, but it's the 4 mana that can be pumped into this Twig.
Yeah.
It'll go off 3 or 4 turns earlier than it was originally expected to. That naturalized pickup, I don't know how many chickens Justsaiyan has sacrificed in his back garden in the last few weeks, but he is playing out of his mind, and he's also getting the little bits he needs to keep the streaks and the wins coming along.
I'm sure it's less about chickens sacrificed and more hours spent grinding away on a lot of Hearthstone.
I think it's probably true.
Because Justsaiyan as well, the decks that he's playing here, it's not like he picked up a bunch of new decks and then suddenly went on a win streak. He's been playing these same kind of aggressive lineups for a long while now, and clearly something's just clicked. He's got it.
Yeah, and people aren't particularly copying it. Yeah, there are more aggro lineups here maybe this time than usual, but Justsaiyan's always the one who's coming out on top with them, and the sample size is just too big for it to just be the chickens.
Yeah. And oh man, it just sets up so perfectly here. I even really like the attack to face with the Tyrant there, because that could have been foregone if he wanted to try and play around Hooked Reaver. But this game for Justsaiyan, I think, is going to be played out very quickly. It's not a slow game. This is a lightning fast game that he wants to win, going into the Malagos swipe turn and then UI for lethal.
Justsaiyan, because he's an incredibly calm character, I think it doesn't reveal how ferociously competitive the guy is. I made the mistake yesterday of not paying attention to his screen when I went over to congratulate him on going 7-0, and he'd just lost on ladder.
Right.
And he was very polite about the fact that he probably needed some time to himself as he just dropped out the top 100. But he was also incredibly, you could see the sort of the burning competitiveness within him, like, I need to play some more of this, I need to get on with it, go away, silly caster.
And now we're going to see, I would imagine, the Malagos swipe turn, even with a wild growth on this turn, to set up perfectly for the UI. A silence has to come down here pretty much to deal with the Malagos from Mitsuhide. Currently, it is not there. There is lethal next turn just with the damage from UI, unless Mitsu can find an answer. This game has just been absolute destruction from Saiyan.
And all went back to the Tyrant play that freed up the flow, that freed up everything for this to happen that you highlighted earlier in the game. And obviously picking up the naturalized help, but if he hadn't played that, this would all be a mess of things trying to sort out now. And it's all tidied up beautifully for him, and it's just going to end.
There's just nothing. Mitsu knows it. Even if he taps and finds Spellbreaker now, I suppose with the Taunt of Sun Fury, that might protect him, but oh, wait, he's at 10 cards anyway, isn't he? So he'd have to go for the coin first. I mean, he just has to pray that the... Yeah, he's going with the Lich King, praying the UI isn't there, but we can clearly see 10 damage exactly to face. Saiyan's going to close this out lightning fast.
Yeah, so many weird things about that game. It looked like he was just in a world of trouble.
Yeah.
But now he's winning it on about turn 7, looking at Mitsu's mana crystals. And Saiyan takes his 1-0 lead. And it's an important one. They're more important in Last Hero anyway than in Conquest sometimes, but now his matchups just look good. And then Alex Straza got added, then Floop got added. It's just as it's aged, these one-offs hang around the deck, telling you why they're all there. And we've gone one level further, as you just described.
And I really like the cue here, as we've just been alluding to for Mitsu of going for the Quest Rogue. It's it's not a hard counter, I find. At least against the average ladder Quest Rogue player. Maybe when Mitsu's piloting it, it's a lot better against the Malagos Druid. But the Quest Rogue needs to get a win here. Well, he doesn't want to be losing with it.
It helps the Shudderwock if the Quest Rogue can pick one up.
He really wants to be getting rid of the Mali Druid out of the way, and then the plan is clearly for his Shudderwock to take down the Zoo and the Odd Rogue, which is very possible. But with a hand like this as well from Saiyan, that's not going to be all too easy.
I was speaking to Saiyan on day one and saying, how do you stay motivated when you're winning so much? Obviously exciting to win and it's fun, but how do you keep focused? He goes, well, I'm not world champion.
Yeah,
that was it. Straight away. Not even moments breath. He's not world champion, therefore he needs to get the points to get there, then he needs to win that.
Oh, did you who was it he was playing against? Did you hear one of the admins was saying about Justsaiyan with his water on stage?
No.
Oh, so he was, I think it might have been he was playing against Zuhex, but don't quote me on that. Basically, he forgot to take any water on stage, and one of the admins ran up and said, oh, do you want me to get you some water? And he said, don't worry, this won't take long.
Oh my goodness.
So savage.
Because he's so reserved, Saiyan, as well. Then he just has this savage streak within him that he just times perfectly. A bit like this savage, or this Nourish here. It just keeps it nice and tight, and does it in real life as well.
Yeah, and I mean, it was not a snap coin Nourish on the previous turn, because obviously he goes up to 7 mana, wouldn't have had anything to play. He probably wouldn't have done it if he hadn't found the Dream Petal. But now with the Dream Petal on 7, which doesn't even necessarily have an answer from Mitsu, there's a very good chance that it will survive and get a second reduction. I mean, Saiyan is just going to be dominating this board with Lich King, Alex Straza. If he can find a UI, this game's looking very nice for Saiyan.
Yeah, the reduction you're talking about, it doesn't matter what it reduces. You just want things that are big on the board to kill the rogue with. Not trying to do any sort of combo shenanigans, just making the world's best Emperor Thaurissan.
No. Thaurissan was the world's best Emperor Thaurissan.
Maybe. I like one-mana Lich Kings.
Fair enough. I would also like that. And Mitsu, as we were talking about the fact there is no guarantee he can kill it off, is there any way he can kill it off at all? I don't think there is. Stone Tusk board, Vicious Scalehide, even, obviously Shadow Step, you can't do it because they'd have to die to attack in. I think this is going to be a Lich King on this turn down to a cheaper Alex Straza. Branching Path is probably just going to be used for damage through to face to deliver lethal afterwards.
So much silliness going on. And there's quite a lot of defense here for Mitsuhide in terms of...
That's fair.
Glacial Shards, Shadow Steps. It's definitely not dead yet. With Valyria and hand, it's always got a chance of turning it around. But with this sticking on board, bad things are going to happen to Mitsu in the foreseeable future. When they're not in the very, very near future,
Yeah.
like one-mana Lich King future.
Kind of a tough turn here for Saiyan as to how he wants to manage his card draw. If he picks up a card like Floop or Tyrant or Mind Control Tech, that's a little bit annoying because it doesn't give him the guaranteed discount on Alexstrasza, which he clearly would rather have.
I mean, you can just play the Lich King and the MC Tech if he wants to here.
Yeah,
He's trying to work out, do I need this Mind Control Tech to ever steal giggling Annoyatrons?
Well, I was thinking one step further back, actually, as to, yeah, I think once you've drawn the Mind Control Tech, this is the play you have to go for. Whether you should have gone for Ferocious Howl there instead of the Branching Paths, because then you can just save Branching Paths for damage on the next turn. Like, that used up most of his mana. He could even have gone for Hero Power Spellstone then on the Wax Elemental, which would have allowed him to go for 4 damage to face, which probably doesn't matter actually because he's Alexstrasza-ing, so...
I felt maybe he was going the other way and trying to draw another big minion. So if you say you drew a Malygos, he can have Alex or Mali. I don't care which one gets reduced.
Malygos
and then if I draw an MC
better.
Tech, I just dump it on the board. If I draw a big minion, it could even be better. So I felt like he was deliberately hunting for more minions for the Florist to hit.
And
which is weird because the Alex looks so good.
Yeah, and I might be over-emphasizing how good it was to save Branching Paths, because... as we're looking at this board, he's not going to be close to lethal. He's going to be well over it. When Alexstrasza comes down, he is going to demolish Mitsuhide. End this man's whole career, is I believe the phrase.
Wow.
I mean, he
won't.
won't.
Mitsuhide is super good at Hearthstone, but yeah, he can give it a good go. And talking to the other players in the top 8 around, because we're in a building where basically the hotel that everyone is staying in is backing onto this arena. Yeah. Basically, everyone just says, oh, I went 7-1 and I played Saiyan. And they all want revenge. Every single player is like, I want to play him again, I want to beat him. But they've just all lost to him at some point in this tournament, and it's absolutely ridiculous already.
Mitsu, however, is starting to draw a very sizable handful of minions. As soon as he finds himself Sonya, he will be able to very easily complete this quest against Justsaiyan's Onslaught. But he's now taking... what is this? He can't fit in the Spellstone and Frostmourne on this turn.
So Alexstrasza's into swipes, into hero power.
Yeah.
Takes him down to 5, I believe.
Yeah, I think I like that. Yeah, just go with the Frostmourne. Whatever you're doing, just get all this damage through to face. And Mitsu falling back in his chair. He knows this could not have gone really any worse for him. This was just an absurdly powerful series of draws for Justsaiyan, and I think he played it out very well. Yeah,
but a bit more basic than some of the things we've seen him do. So.
It was pretty easy. Like the only real decision turn was the turn prior to this, exactly with the branch paths. Everything else just kind of played itself. But I think having seen it play out, he had a contingency plan for even if he drew Mind Control Tech, and the branching paths for damage here clearly was not needed, which I imagine Justsaiyan will have realised.
Yeah. Nor were a lot of things that made it a very hard choice, because nor was the MC Tech's not exactly doing a lot either. The Malygos probably wouldn't have been required, but I think he was just trying to see if he could get a double reduction on 2 big minions in case of some Glacial Shard shenanigans, maybe.
Yeah, well, the only thing that could really save Mitsu here, I think, is Prep Vanish into Glacial Shard through to the face. We can see that would keep him alive, technically, for the moment. But it wouldn't have felt great, I think, to be perfectly honest. And now he has to go for Glacial Shard, Brewmaster. There's just nothing. Mitsuhide throws it down. And Saiyan, after 2 lethals that came on, like, turn 7 from Malygos Druid each way, this has been one of the most dominant displays of Hearthstone I've seen in this series for a long time. Mitsuhide was telling me before the game he didn't expect a Druid first pick. He expected Zoo or Odd Rogue after he bans away the Aggro Mage, obviously. And then he thought, okay, if I can get my Even Lock into Zoo, I'm pretty happy. Or if I can get my Shudderwock into Odd Rogue, I'm fairly happy. What he didn't expect was this first queue of Malygos Druid, and we can clearly see he has been punished for misreading the situation.
Yeah, and something I've seen Saiyan do, because one of the slight, tiny disadvantages of being streamed a lot is people start to spot patterns in your queue order and in your bans and stuff. And something Saiyan has done throughout this streak of insanity that we keep on about is he's mixed it up. Sometimes he queues up the obvious deck first. Quite often queues up the obvious deck first, because that's what you're supposed to do. But he mixes it up just enough that when he wants to catch somebody off guard, he has a good chance of doing so.
Very true. But now we're seeing the power true drops on both sides. I believe this is Saiyan is now 3 for 3 on Wild Growth, for Wild Growth on 2. But Mitsu gets his own very nice little card to be starting with in the obvious Prince Elisa.
Yeah, and very important too, because you will want to get the extra damage through here. Druid can just be a nightmare if it gets rolling against you armor-wise and time-wise.
Oh yeah, getting board for Mitsu here is fairly important. It's unlikely he'll win through board presence because of the likes of obviously Spreading Plague, Starfall that we see there as well for Justsaiyan. But it means he's not falling behind on board, which is just a losing state.
And you're costing them mana. If you're making them Starfall, that's 5 mana Saiyan can't spend. If you're going to turn 10 and do something, or Druid turn 10, which is turn 3 in the real world, if you go into that turn and force them to do something else, they UI a turn later, and so on. So all the mana it eats up is very important.
Gluttonous Ooze being found for Mitsu, as we can see, probably won't be all too relevant right now, but it being 0 mana could mess with Saiyan's head a little bit. He'll be thinking, okay, if I make a big board here, he can't go for double Volcano plus Ooze to destroy my Twig, something like that. It probably won't come to that case, but it might mean Mitsuhide can go for a surprise attack where he deals with the board or heals up, whilst also removing the Twig later on.
Just casually playing a 5 mana 4/4. Seems fine. Nothing else to do, so let's do that.
He really, really, really wanted a Nourish on that turn, but I think Justsaiyan has had good enough luck here.
Yeah, I think we'll let him just have a Tyrant on turn 5, and he'll have to deal with that.
Well, he's done that 2 games here, right? In the first game, he just played Tyrant on 4. On 5. Well, it was actually on turn 4 because the wild growth.
Yeah, I mean, I just call it by the mana turn,
Yeah.
The actual turn numbers of Druid soon get lost because it goes completely nuts.
And we do see here Mitsu starting to win board control. There is no Spreading Plague available for Saiyan. So Mitsu, even with the ability to go for something, I imagine, like Coin Grumble, maybe that doesn't come down right yet, but basically the point I'm trying to make is he has the combo. I was saying he wins this by going through an early Shudderwock, because while your denial of your opponent's win condition is much diminished since the Boomsday Project came out, Mitsuhide's own win condition in an early Shudderwock is still very much active.
Oh, look at this turn. Wow. Just the world's sort of saddest Starfall. We had nothing else to do anyway that turn, so basically gets it for free as well because you're playing the Tyrant.
Yeah, it's saying obviously there's no situation where I think it will be better than this and where I have the mana spare. It does deny Coin Grumble, as we were thinking of, which was a very real possibility for Mitsuhide. Obviously, you would like to bounce back your your Saronite Chain Gang and your Keleseth because they both have very powerful battle cries in this deck.
Mitsu basically taking time to order. There's so many little things here, like when do I want to coin anyway?
Yeah.
You know, can I protect the Grumble if I want to? When do I play the Life Drinker if it's not now because it needs to be in there for part of your combo, etc., etc.
Wow, we're seeing the Coin Grumble. The reason I was going to say why he wouldn't go for Coin Grumble is because he really wants to take that trade to take out the 2 health Tyrant. He does both here, however, excepting he's not going to get any value off the bouncing back and making it more likely that his Shudderwock goes off. But I guess in this game, Mitsuhide isn't really concerned with getting an extra Keleseth buff, because as it appears to me, his win condition is Shudderwock on turn 9, or perhaps turn 10.
Yeah, he's certainly setting up for as early as possible, as early as realistic Shudderwock.
Yeah.
And this seems like a straightforward enough turn. But even then, you've got the considerations. Do you want a hero power? Do you not? Tends to be a bit wobbly if you do so against Druid. Because those cards end up back in your hand and mess with your Shudderwock and all that. We all know this, but always worth reminding newer people, because we don't see as much Shudderwock on stream as we used to.
It's true.
Especially in these tournaments, but outside of HGG where they're forced to play lots of classes.
And if you're not playing or watching a lot of Shudderwock, it's stuff like this that you forget, which I also have to admit I had forgotten, which is that you always need to remember that Ooze is a battle cry. It goes into the Shudderwock pool, so even if Twig does come down at a later date, Mitsuhide is not throwing away the possibility to deal with it. He's getting a 4/4 on board and saying my Shudderwock will be leading me to a win condition, because there's obviously no way that Saiyan can play and break the Twig in between now and turn 9 or 10.
Interesting how it's come around so that Shudderwock seems to be quite good again. I think it's carried Mitsu through a lot of this tournament from
it's done well
what he's been saying. And yet, we haven't seen anybody else playing it, hardly. We've seen one.
I mean, like you don't see it much on ladder because of the dominance of Quest Rogue, I think, mostly, which is such a miserable matchup. And also Death Rattle Hunter, which is around a fair bit, which is another matchup I really don't like from the Shudderwock side.
And Last Hero Standing, it doesn't have... It's weird because it's a polarized deck to some degree, but it's not reliably polarized. The numbers aren't huge. It's not like it doesn't have 80-20s and 70-30s. So in Last Hero, you can't use it as a counter queue. You tend to go for something a bit more with a bit more certainty about it.
It's an odd warrior counter queue. It's the only real hard counter queue I think that it has. I'll agree with that, because all the other fantastic matchups like Control Mage, like who's playing Control Mage?
And if you're going to do that, you might as well play Quest Rogue, is usually
fair enough.
Yeah, who is playing Control
Well, he's playing
Mage?
both. Mitsuhide has gone for like a double or even triple counter control lineup with Token Druid, Shadowwalk, and Quest Rogue. It's interesting.
And that is why he's in this spot here against Saiyan's Hit You lineup. Although he hasn't played the Hit You decks yet. This is the obligatory Druid pick with his aggro lineup.
Yeah, and something that we kind of glossed over as we were talking about Mitsuhide's turns, because that has been the more interesting turns, I think it's fair to say here so far, was the Floop coming down for Saiyan onto a board that basically it just gets value traded against, because I guess he's thinking the Malagos win condition with the Floop just isn't going to get there. He needs to make sure he's not dying on board. It's an interesting play, to say the least. Also,
it looks terrifyingly, but if somebody did that against me, I'd be like,
what on earth is your hand?
Why is your little brother playing on your account?
Yeah, it's not a play you see often, except against the most aggressive of decks, and even then it's fairly rare. I suppose it's, like we said, it's unlikely he thinks that the Malagos Floop win condition is realistic. Also, he needs hand space, and there was no guarantee he'd be able to play the cards he just drew off the top. He wants to set up for an ultimate infestation. Even then, I mean, I defer to Justsaiyan. He's so good that I will say this is probably the right play just because he made it.
He also knows he doesn't have much time. Because Mitsu played the Ooze, there's a very strong read that Shadowwalk's already in hand. Because you were talking about the Battle Cry at the time, Mitsu probably wouldn't risk that unless he had the Shadowwalk already, just because he could deal with a Twig to delay the game longer to get to his Shadowwalk.
Yeah.
So maybe Saiyan's okay, I've got this read from a strong player, there's probably a Shadowwalk. I've seen a Grumble, I've seen a lot of Battle Cries. I need to just try anything I can to stem this, because this game's going 3 more turns.
And finally, after a game where Saiyan has done, to be honest, a whole lot of nothing, the ultimate infestation comes down, ready to start giving him a hand that actually does something once again. And he gets a pretty respectable hand. We've got the Malagos with a Moonfire to maybe start doing a little bit of extra damage. Malfurion to push a bit of extra to face. It looks to me now like, in terms of minion damage, Saiyan can survive for the moment.
Yeah, I mean, I'm counting lethals as we speak. There's so much damage available for Mitsu with this Earth Shot. There's 13 damage to face available right now. Obviously, that's not lethal through 22. That's not quite how things add up.
Yeah.
But already you're saying he's got time, and you're right, he has. But that time is incredibly limited.
Yeah. Whatever he's going to do, he's going to have to do it very quickly. And to be honest, what Justsaiyan can do is starting to look quite limited. He knows full well that the Ooze Battle Cry is stored safely within Shadowwalk, so Twig is unlikely to work. He doesn't have Floop anymore, so Malagos into next turn Floop, Swipe, Moonfire is not a lethal condition. It's going to have to be, I suppose, winning a big board through Spreading Plague to try and get there, surprise Alex Straza, and there's no Healing Rain in response. Or more likely, just praying that the Shadowwalk is in fact not there, and he can win a great deal later in the game.
Yeah, I think the Floop play, the more I look at it, the more he realised he's never using Floop for anything other than, he hasn't got the time for Floop to do anything in this match.
Hex coming down here just for Mitsuhide to try and give himself still the win condition of dominating the board here, because he doesn't want a 5-5 trading in. Does obviously leave him more vulnerable to Malagos on this turn from Saiyan.
Just plop a Malagos onto the board, you're saying? Or
Yeah. I think it's a very real consideration for Saiyan. If he thinks he can survive the turn, then he will be going for any way to try and stick this Malagos and get damage through to face. If you extend that further, because he used a Hex there very liberally, you maybe assume he has the second one.
That's what I was thinking. I think Saiyan's very scared of this second Hex, but sometimes you just got to do something and hope your read is bad. And
we can see that the Earthshock is there for Mitsu, so he does have an answer, kind of, to Malagos, at least to the spell damage bit.
And the Floop's been played, so that's all you need.
The spell damage is basically all accounted for then for Mitsuhide.
I mean, and in some scenarios, he just kills Saiyan anyway. There's a lot of damage coming through here. So Saiyan's going to have to empty out all kinds of win condition cards here just to not die. But even then,
it's
going to kill that chain gang.
This is just...
Oh, it hurts. 9 damage. Oof.
It's such a desperate play, though, isn't it? Because just a Lightning Storm, I think, pretty much always guarantees a clear here. What was that? 6-10? Yeah, so Lightning Storm is a full board clear every time if Mitsuhide wants it. It's so likely that this Malagos dies here for Justsaiyan, but it's his only real chance considering how behind he is here. This just has to stick on the board.
Is
Oh, is there just lethal?
I think Earthshock the 0-1, hit your opponent for 10, play Shudderwock, and there's a life drink in the pool.
That is just lethal. Yeah, you're correct. 10, 13. Yeah, it's lethal just available for Mitsuhide right now. I agree. Whoa! I think he might be tunnel visioning. We see this so often from players.
Yeah, it's so
with these
obvious. I'm
control
double checking my own math, but there's definitely a life drink in the pool. He's definitely got 10 there. I'm not misreading numbers. I've got my glasses on.
6, 10, plus the 3. Yeah, I think.
But he's got so much in his mind. Because he's assigned that Earthshock mentally to the Malagos.
Oh no, wait. He's got it.
He's seen it. Okay. And now Saiyan's just going to... Watch Saiyan's face here. He has this little shrug that he does where he's like, well, why did you just take so long to do that?
Yeah.
I've seen it multiple times. It's not quite what I was expecting, but he's like, okay, sure, you got me.
Yeah, and that... I'm glad we saw that from Mitsu, because he is one of the very few players that we've seen on stream, at least, that has brought Shudderwock Shaman to this tournament. And it would...
If you can turn that into 6, then he's the semi-finals here at Oslo.
So going with the Zoo first. I suppose for Saiyan, actually, the queue order really doesn't matter anymore, because he just has to win with one of his 2 decks against the Shudderwock Shaman available left to Mitsuhide.
Yeah, the ladder's finished, so he's not in a hurry to get back there. Cue the quicker one first.
Good point, good point.
Zoo hands always look a combination of quite good and vaguely mediocre. Like, they always look, oh, this is okay. Zoo hands, apart from the stupid Happy Ghoul starts that you occasionally get, they always look kind of... All the minions look kind of the same. So you never have a bad hand, you never have a good hand, and that is the consistency of Zoo in LHS, I think.
Interesting to see a Fungal Mancer mulligan away there. In a lot of the aggro decks, obviously most of which run Fungal Mancer now, you see that being kept against these slower control decks because it's a way to really ramp up your damage big time. But Zoo is not like Odd Paladin, where until turn 5 you only really have 5, maybe 6 damage on board if you're lucky. This, on like turn 2, will already have an absurd amount of damage on board. Fungal Mancer isn't really needed, I think, to get the damage there.
It's also against the specific removal that Shaman has.
That's
Hex
true.
and Volcano still tear through it, whereas if you're playing against something with sort of smaller removal, which most decks have these days, actually the Fungal Mancer just gets them out of range of, say, a Hellfire.
Good point.
Saiyan's first big decision now with this doubling imp.
Yeah, how does he want to play around removal in this game? What's his game plan? Does he want to just quote-unquote bait it out first with the doubling imp to then develop with what?
Right, that's what I think exactly what he was going to do it, and I think he got to the exact point you just got to. He's like, yeah, bait out the Lightning Storm, and I'll redevelop with my Librarian.
Yeah.
Oh.
It's not great.
He had to go this way, but he picked up a 1-drop from the Librarian, so all is well in Saiyan land. Zero mana mind control tech in some situations here is going to be a gigantic nuisance. Not having any 3 health minions is a big problem for Saiyan here too.
Yeah.
Just walking straight into any lightning storms could be terrifying.
He also really doesn't want to go above the 3 minion threshold until he's quite firmly in the lead, I think.
Yeah, or if he wants to go to 6 minions and then just say,
yes,
I don't care if you mind control tech one of these because I'm going to kill you.
He wants to either be winning the game the turn after he plays into MCT or in a pretty much unlosable situation.
Interesting decision here for Mitsuhide. He's got 3 strong choices. He can Lightning Storm.
Yeah. He
can Lightning Storm and play a 0 mana MC Tech just to occupy board. Or he can just drop the Chain Gang and go, meh, your minions are too puny.
Yeah. Oh man, the 0 mana MCT for Mitsu is so nice because it messes up again with Justsaiyan's maths here. He is unable to think, okay, he can't MCT and clear my board. He has to choose one or the other. So if he does mind control tech, I push like 8 damage to face. Whereas the 1-2 punch for Mitsu of mind control tech into Lightning Storm could just be so good. And I do favour the Chain Gang here because even if you're met with Coin Fungal Mancer, which is probably what we're going to be seeing here from Justsaiyan, you still have the follow-up of Lightning Storm.
And this is why we believe he probably didn't keep it in his opener, because these sort of situations turn up. He is going to have to high roll on the 4-3.
Yeah, it is good for him, and I think we very possibly see the Volcano instead. Oh, it's a close one. If the 4-3 survives, it's really, really bad for you. But on turn 5, he knows that there's the potential for bigger minions to come down, like the Dreadlord that we see in Saiyan's deck. And there's likely many more 3 or higher health minions coming down on the following turns, with Chain Gangs, Fungal Enchanters, and all that goodness.
Yeah, I think he's already thinking, what's my reload next turn? How often do I get to use my Hex on a Dreadlord or something? And how often do I have another wide board to contend with?
That's true.
Because you can't Lightning Storm into Hex, into Volcano, but you can Volcano into Lightning Storm. You can do it the other way around, depending what minions you think he's going to play into you.
So if you do go for Volcano and they make one big minion, you very happily Hex it away, I think.
And if they make some small ones, you probably take a
Lightning Storm.
A bit of a messy-looking Lightning Storm and see what happens.
I think Mitsu's gone through the same thought process as us. It feels a little bit like overkill, but you're unlikely, if you are winning the board, to be facing a board bigger than that from your opponent for a fair while.
And plopping down the 0 mana MC Tech means that if your Lightning Storm goes a bit wobbly, you've got a minion to pick up the pieces.
And Saiyan has quite clearly been demonstrating that he's playing around Mind Control Tech. Trading away the Flame Imp on turn 4, put him back down to 3 minions. He didn't play Doubling Imp on turn 3 to play around Lightning Storm and MCT. So I like it for Mitsu realizing a 0 mana 3/3 is probably better.
Yeah, it's always an interesting standoff, not so much in Shudderwock, but in decks that play MC Tech as their only sort of removal, because the second you play it, your opponent can then go wide.
Yeah.
But Mitsu has the backup of Lightning Storms and stuff, so there's no such consideration here.
And the follow-up now doesn't have to be Lightning Storm. If you're really, really afraid of the Light Warden, then that's a consideration. But I don't think you do have to be that scared at the moment. I think I prefer the Sandbinder here because the 3/3 already just trades so favorably against the Saronite Chain Gang from Justsaiyan.
And Saiyan has done -1 damage so far, if you allow for the Healing Rain in hand. Got a long way to go, but Zoo is pretty tenacious.
That was the worst maths I've ever heard in my life. He's done -1 damage. He can't heal up to 31.
Oh, okay, well, you know, he's done 0 damage then.
So Justsaiyan has healed his opponent for 1 this game.
Yes, he has.
Right, brilliant. They call
I'm
it
right
heal
and you're
Zoo for a
wrong.
reason.
Exactly, thank you. See? I'm always right even when I'm wrong.
Yeah, whatever.
Mainly because you bail me out most of the time.
And Saiyan here relying on the Chain Gang to protect his juicier minions against this Sandbinder and not opting to go for Soulfire, which clearly indicates I think a focus on the short term rather than the long term, which is far to say it's not to say it's an oversight. This is thinking, I want to play aggressive, I want to close out the game as soon as possible because things are starting to get a little bit scary.
Yeah, several reasons for that. He's also seen the Volcano, so you want to get into the slot before the second one is drawn if it hasn't been already.
Yeah.
And also, like you say, it's getting scary. You might just be approaching the Shudderwock danger zone. And that's not a nice place to be caught.
So finally now for Mitsu, feeling the old Lightning Storm is worth it. If he's not going for a totem first, it clearly indicates he's got the rest of his mana spent. I guess in his mind through
Glacial Shard,
Manatide? Yeah, Manatide, Glacial Shard.
So freeze the thing that survives if anything does. But then Glacial Shard, and then you play Manatide and draw some bits.
I mean, in the best case scenario, he can just clear off the board anyway. Yeah, I think I like this more. This keeps your 2/3 alive. And if you were going for Manatide Totem instead of the Hex with the Glacial Shard, the Shard died anyway unless you rolled a 3 on both the Chain Gang and the Despicable
you couldn't
Dreadlord.
trade through very easily. Suddenly, Derek's intake of breath, you hear it quite often when this happens. Leroy Soulfire is a lot of damage. One more board from Saiyan. There's no removal from Mitsu. He's going to have to probably Healing Rain, and that's just going to slow his development down a huge amount.
And this is probably Saiyan's final hurrah in this game to get him through to the semi-finals, the top 4 of this tournament at HCT Oslo.
Yeah, he'll get to play Kallax if he does that. Kallax wants a go at revenge. He was 2-0 up, and Saiyan reverse swept him with Odd Rogue, and Kallax had 2 favourable matchups in that. And he just shrugged and said, I played Saiyan. Same as everybody else in the top 8, pretty much. But he's not there yet. Mitsu is feeling the pinch. He's realising that he's really got to heal here. But what do you do with 3 mana if you heal here? The rest of your turn is
double
absolute
shard.
gubbins.
It's not that bad. You double shard the 3 drops.
Yeah.
And then you Healing Rain and take out one of the Doubling Imps.
Sure.
You always survive that turn. That's not the consideration. It's just whether you can regain board control after. And does he actually have to omit the heal on this turn? He doesn't have to. Maybe he just goes Glacial Shard, Manatide Totem, And then, oh, do you play the second shard or hero power? That's kind of close. I think you probably play the shard.
So you have to play around Leroy. But do you have to play around Leroy Soulfire? Possibly not.
Probably not, yeah. And like even if he goes for double shard and the trade and the Manatite Totem, he survives against Leroy. That's not lethal. Yeah, I like this more than the Healing Rain. He's just praying here that he's not dead, I suppose.
Yeah, he's not dead to many things here. Some combination of Solariums and Soulfire gambles that are never going to happen. He'd be dead too, but Dreadlord's an amazing pickup though for Saiyan, because this was Mitsu's attempt to get the board back, and the Dreadlord says
so
no.
Nuts.
And
so good.
Soul Infusion with Leroy as your left-hand minion is also an entertaining prospect here. He may just play this here to set that up for later.
He needs to think about Soulfire discarding. If he goes for the buff on Leroy, that's 12 damage to face he can push rather than 10. It's not lethal as it currently stands, but Mitsu wincing there. This is clearly what he didn't want to see, and Justsaiyan is going for the throat.
Yeah, and it was a bit of a ironic sort of shake there from Mitsu. That's why he didn't want to go for the Glacial Shards. They thought, well, if you've seen one, what's the odds? Yeah. And the odds are he's got it. It turned out.
Yep, he does indeed. So Mitsu needs to go for, I suppose, Saronite Chain Gang Healing Rain. Doesn't feel amazing. Maybe he thinks he's in such a bad spot that he has to go for Farsight into Volcano.
He's got to work out what he thinks he can beat. Like he's well aware that something's going on in Saiyan's hand because there's those 3 cards sitting there. Yeah. He may not think he can ever beat Leroy Soulfire, so he'll probably leave himself dead to that.
Yeah, fair.
And he's got to work out what's a good play here.
Well, if he does get a Volcano off of this, it's a perfect board clear, and he has to pretty much hit it exactly. He does not find it, though, so the play this turn can't even be Healing Rain into Saronite anymore.
And Healing Rain, if you're wondering like why doesn't he just play the Healing Rain and not die, because it does nothing and that board's there next turn to do it all again anyway.
But if he can survive a turn, then go Volcano next turn, that's good enough. I think he has to go Healing Rain, Life Drinker, Hero Power here, just to try and stay alive.
Yeah, you need the Life Drink on there to take some more of that damage off the board next turn if you're going to do the Volcano. But actually goes for a Totem, trying to just get a taunt, basically, I guess.
Yeah.
Doesn't hit it.
So now 28 health available for Mitsu, drawing another card to try and get himself up to... Oof. To try and get himself to the Volcano, but another Soulfire picked up for Saiyan.
But he could just Leroy here.
This is now
it's not lethal.
10 down to 18, 16. This is potentially lethal.
If he wants to go for it,
if he doesn't
do it.
Discard the Soulfire. He has lethal against 28 damage, and Justsaiyan has done it.
I didn't think he would go for it, but he might as well in case there's a second Healing Rain.
Exact lethal. Exactly. This is absolutely insane. A beautiful play from Justsaiyan as well. Buffing up the Leroy, keeping the Soulfire because he didn't play it earlier against the Sandbinder, setting up maybe not this